Nation mired in toxic partisanship, left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thank you so much for joining us here on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or leave your comments online on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group, Kevin Wilson page, or Kevin Wilson Twitter account, wherever you're listening today. Appreciate y'all being here. And today, of course, it's the day after the election. Many results are in. There's still a few things that are out in the air, but most results are in now. And now we're just trying to figure out, well, what do we make of it? Did the red wave happen? Are we disappointed about the results, excited about results? We'd love to hear from you. Thoughts about any of the elections in the local area or nationwide. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. And we'll discuss it. You disappointed, surprised, smug that your predictions are correct, whichever. Want to hear from you. We'll leave it we'll leave it open. And this Facebook user says, regardless of vote tallies, my hair won. It always wins. Right on. So I'm glad someone was a winner. And that Facebook user also says it was a red tide. It stunk. Made people cry. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, it wasn't quite the red wave that everyone predicted. Well, at least Republicans predicted. We'll see again. We'll see what ends up happening. It looks like the Senate is probably going to be split. Neither side's going to have a filibuster-proof majority, so not a lot of stuff will happen except for the stuff that bipartisan consensus can be built around, which might be good, might be bad. Depends on what that bipartisan consensus is, right? And same with the House. It's going to be very, very close. We'll see what happens there, but very close. And of course I want to talk about the gubernatorial election too, and some state party stuff. And we're going to start with that. We're mostly going to talk about New York State stuff starting out, and then we'll kind of get to some of the national stuff later on. Of course, I want to talk about the New York State election, where it looks like Kathy Hochul is the winner. I'm looking at the unofficial election results right now, and I'll share the link for those of you online as well. But 52% to 47%, Kathy Hochul looks like she won. Sounds like we have a caller on the line, though. Mark, what's on your mind?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. What's up?
Just wanted to share an experience I had yesterday when I went and voted. I'm out in the town of Sweden, and I found it kind of curious that when I cast my ballot, the machine wouldn't accept my ballot. And the workers were pretty helpful. They were like, oh, well, just turn it over and send it back through. Okay, sure, did that. Didn't read the ballot. I did that 5 times before I read the ballot, and they kept telling me, well, the machines are finicky. And so I was a little disturbed by that. I know that election integrity is on a lot of people's minds, and when you have an experience like that, it really sort of piques your attention, and so you're going, okay, is there really something going on here? Are the machines really that unreliable? And how do I know my vote even counted? Or it was counted properly.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That happened to me in the 2020 election. Like, it took several times for my vote to go through. This time I put it in, went right through. It was good. And, got the little thing on the screen saying, vote submitted or whatever it says. But, yeah, that is something I would get why that would weird you out. And let me toss out a solution. I know I'm discussing this with one of my other friends. Like, would it make sense to get like some sort of receipt, some sort of confirmation? And does that compromise your privacy in any way if you have a confirmation that you voted in some way?
Well,
what
I thought about that. And actually it would be kind of cool if the machines, if and it seems like the technology should exist, that it pops up an image of what it's scanned at least that would be a step in confirming that it read your ballot correctly and that you could just push a button on the screen that said, yes or no, that it accepted what you had colored in. But,
Yeah.
So that would, I'm sure that we'll hear, oh, we can't afford that because it's money. And it surely is money. It would
Right.
change the system and whatnot, which, well, maybe that's what we need. But, how can one be assured that what you submitted on your ballot is actually what the machine read? So I guess that was just a concern. I just was kind of curious yesterday. I thought to myself, I wonder how many other people had that experience. And if this seems to be a particular problem regionally, why are we using these machines?
Yeah, no, it's totally fair. Listen, I got that same thing in the 2021 election and in the 2020 election. It gave me some trouble reading the machine. And you can't help but wonder, like, hey, is it just like it can't pick up my vote? What's going on? And then this time around, Monroe County in particular, like they took a really long time to release results. So we're all curious, like, what happened with that?
It's curious. That's exactly the word. And so, I wonder, if our Board of Elections was barraged with phone calls that said something along the lines of, hey, the machine, the machines aren't reliable. The machines aren't working. I wonder what that would do, if anything. Maybe I heard a news report on the top of the hour news broadcast yesterday that they were talking about France is going back to non-machine voting, and I don't know if they said it was outlawed or they're just not, they're not allowing machine votes in elections anymore.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
maybe that would help.
that could be, again, I'm in favor of like trying out a whole bunch of different stuff. I think one of the good things about our election systems is that like they are kind of done by each individual state, right? And then each state can kind of figure out what works. And there's no like one single point of failure. If like, Joe Biden proposed tomorrow, like a single like electoral system that had to come through like the federal government, same machines, all that stuff, that would worry me. I wouldn't want that.
Right.
Republican or Democrat.
Well, and so, we'll see what happens when the results are finalized. And I guess all we can do is wonder, because we don't have any way of confirming that, what the counts actually are representative of what people actually wanted. One wonders after 2020, huh?
Right. And in finding new ways to like, I'm like generally confident in our election system, but finding ways to like build that trust and to get the confirmation that like what you intended actually worked, I think could be a step in reassuring people that like our election systems have integrity, that they do work well, and that there are ways to like audit this effectively.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for what you guys do. I appreciate catching your show, and keep up the great work.
All right, thank you. Thanks so much for calling in, Mark. And I know we do have another call on the line. Real quick before we get to that, like my producer said it to me while we were talking, and I did see this too. There was a computer system with Monroe County, but like a lot of folks last night were like, "Hey, what's going on?" And if there's a computer error, and just getting the unofficial results up, like was there any other issues with that? And again, I don't know that those are issues that were serious in terms of like affecting like the results or the count, the accuracy of the election. I don't know that it's that, but again, transparency and communication is going to be important in these situations to make sure that people can trust what's going on. All right, then. Yep. Yeah, and sounds like we have someone else on the line. John, who is an election inspector. Is that right, John?
Yes, I am. From Monroe
John,
County.
Right on, John. So what's up?
Okay. He talked about why it didn't go in the machine all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What we tell the people is find the person. There's a circle to the left of it. Make sure you color it in. No white seeing.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, we send it back to the table, color the thing right, and it goes right in, takes right off.
So when you try to put the ballot in the machine, if the bubble's not done all the way, it might reject that result. Because,
it automatically does.
Okay.
It automatically does. It does it. I mean, we had I don't know. We had spoiled ballots. That means you voted for Kathy Hochul on top and you voted for her on the bottom. Well, you can't put it through because it's not gonna read. So they got to spoil the ballot. They got to make an extra with the word spoil, fold it up, put it in an envelope. We got to issue a new ballot, and we got to tell them, if you have any problems, we are here to help you.
Yeah.
So we'll do our job as long as we tell them, if you got any questions, ask before you go. Go to the table or go to stand up and stuff like that. Let's say this, okay. It's made by man, so it's just like man. Man makes mistakes, the machine makes mistakes.
Yeah.
So
nothing's going to be absolutely perfect.
Right.
But
I'm not perfect. Nobody is I know of. And when they built it, it's going to screw up. And it does.
100%, John. So, John, we're heading to breaks, but thank you so much for calling in, and thank you so much for telling us about that aspect of it. Again, if you want to call in, talk about the election or results, anything else, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes here on A Free Solution.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hey, this is Kevin Wilson, host of A Free Solution. You ever needed a tool for just one project, but didn't want to spend the cash for something you'd use just once or twice? Well, there's a new tool library in Rochester where you can borrow just the thing you need instead of buying a new one. It's called the Tool Shed from the Southeast Area Coalition, and membership starts at just $25 a year. Use it for home projects or to support your business. Learn more and become a member at seektoolshed.org. That's SEAC toolshed.org.
Only available in the WISL store at WISL1040.com. Official top quality tees, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting the colorful WISL logo or the already famous Mount Worstmore line of merch depicting Mount Rushmore style are for worst presidents. Of course, you know who is front and center up on that mountain. WISL official items make perfect gifts, or they're a great way for you to make a personal statement. Locally produced and sold only in the WISL store at WISL1040.com.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
All right, welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thank you so much for joining us here on WYSL. And we got an active show today. We got a couple callers on the line, but real quick before I get to those, I want to just respond to one point from John and then read a couple of the online comments. And I'll get to the callers quick, so hang on tight, guys. So real quick, just respond to John. I've always had a good experience with the poll workers. They've been very helpful, like at the place that I go and vote. Most of those folks have been great, and they're just trying to like make sure that like you can vote easily and you understand like what's going on. I have never had any issues with any poll workers anywhere. It's not to say that there aren't any anywhere, but I've always had a good experience with that. And when I talked about in 2020 and 2021 having issues with my ballot, they're very helpful. And they're just like, hey, like, maybe the corners folded a little bit. Let's try to get this in again. They're very helpful in trying to make sure that my ballot was cast properly. A couple Facebook users leaving comments too is about, don't give up New York. We got 2 years to be involved in localized government, make our voices heard, start small groups, keep our local politicians in check. No more sleeping on the job. No more coffee and gossip sessions during council meetings. Let's make the gold ripple out of the counties and cover the state. Right on. Alice on YouTube says need to go back to paper ballots and ID. So other Facebook users saying not a fan of the current polling workers. They had some issues, I guess, with using stamps. I don't know about that. Using stamps for write-ins. I'm not sure about that one. And And John Barron on Facebook also saying, people were had questions about write-ins because there are other big elections where there are write-ins for sheriff and council seats in Clinton County. People, especially older people, were confused on how it worked, and the volunteers really were not much help. And that's unfortunate. Again, I've always had a good experience with write-ins and making sure that, and they made sure, if we're doing that, that worked well. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. But let's get to those callers now. Jim, Jim, you still on the line with us?
Yeah, still here. I'm out in Greece. I tried to cast my ballot. I'm in Greece. I tried to cast it. The machine rejected my ballot 3 times. The 4th time it finally took it. I was very careful the way that I filled in the bubbles. I'm a a draftsman and engineer, so I was very careful that way. So I think that's kind of a bogus statement. The other thing, anecdotally, I asked 24 people just this morning, and out of a dozen Republicans, I had 6 Republicans who voted conservatively. All conservatives had the same issue. Their initial casting ballot on the machine was rejected, if not 3 times, 4 times, one guy 5 times. The other issue, I asked the Democrats, about a dozen Democrats, none of their ballots were rejected by the machine. I also have a friend who's a poll worker, and one of the interesting things up in the city was there were people that wanted to vote for Singletary, but because he was not on the Democratic ticket, it ended up they wrote his name in, and it ends up I wonder how many of those write-in votes have been tallied to this point in time. And the last point would be I thoroughly second the other point that the man made earlier about the fact that if the machine reported how your vote was actually cast, that would be significant, because in the military, in the Air Force, I was overseas quite a bit in 21 years. I had the absentee ballot vote, and it ended up that I was informed in most of those states where I did that, only when the contest was contested did they actually open up those absentee ballots. And I asked that about the clerk here in Rochester, and I'd like to know how if the absentee ballots, especially those that are military, have been tallied to this point in time. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for calling. And just to address a bunch of those things too, like absentee ballots, I think, as far as I'm aware, they're being counted now. But prior to like COVID and doing early voting and doing some of this other stuff, yeah, they used to not count those. Like they would only open up absentee ballots if the race were close enough where the absentee ballots could change the outcome of the race. And so that's something to keep in mind, is that's the case. Now, again, it's not to say that they, wouldn't count and they wouldn't make a difference in the race, because they could absolutely. But it was a thing actually with the Libertarian Party trying to get ballot access back in like 2010, where the absentee ballots would have actually made a difference in getting ballot access for the Libertarian Party, and the state didn't count those. I think the court case like that didn't happen until right before the next election, ended up kind of validating that they should have done that, but it was too late to make a difference anyway. So yeah, just to answer that, New York State hasn't been the greatest about like counting absentee ballots, even when they would make a difference in ballot access for some of the third parties like the Libertarians, and they should be better about that. I mean, in terms of like the functionality of the machines and whatnot, keep in mind that like there are Republicans. It's Board of Elections at like the county level are split between Republicans and Democrats. There's a Republican commissioner, Democrat commissioner, Republican deputy commissioner, Democrat deputy commissioner, and those folks do have a lot of incentive to make sure that there isn't any shenanigans going on with Republican candidates. So you could reach out to them, and they could probably tell you a lot more about what's going on and how they make sure that those work. So something that's worth reaching out to them too if you have any questions about that. So they're going to know more than me. And I know we have another call on the line, Joe from Schenectady. Joe, thank you so much for your patience, and welcome to A Free Solution. What's up?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, like, after like the gubernatorial race is actually counted and everything, like what percentage of the vote is like if there's like a 2% gap or something where Larry Sharp could potentially get some votes there, and they end up having to count it after all the absentees and everything come in, because they don't have quite 100% of the vote in yet. I don't know what the percentage is, but the race was tightening up after they called it for Hochul. It's now down to like 5 points, I think. It was 10 last night that Hochul was leading, but now that more of the votes coming in, a lot of the votes for Zeldin is starting to come in. But I think they projected it because they know Hochul's going to win based on the amount of voters that showed up and stuff. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. But as far as the red wave is concerned, they've picked up a lot of seats on Long Island. They picked up like 4 congressional seats. They also picked up District 17 in Rochester. Well, not Rochester, Westchester, which is it's a swing district. And they picked up Michael Lawler, his name is. He beat the chair for the Democratic Party. So that was a pretty significant loss for them in terms of, organizational structure in the House. So I don't know.
Yeah, so there's a few. It's going to be close. And I know, like, did Mark Molinaro end up winning his race down there?
Molinaro won, too.
He ended up winning, yeah. And then Syracuse ended up staying Republican. What's his name? Brandon won out there. And so, I mean, it's going to be close. And New York seems to have shifted a bit more red in terms of congressional districts anyway. And I was going to respond to something else you had said. Oh, the gubernatorial election, in terms of the write-in votes, they're probably not going to be counted. That's the unfortunate part, is that right now I'm looking at the percentage of write-in votes. It's 0.17%. So they're not gonna count those. So we won't even know what the difference, how many votes end up with Larry Sharp or with Howie Hawkins or with anyone else running. It's just going to be that we're just going to know what percentage of write-in it was. And there are, according to New York State, like unofficial election results, still like 1,000 or so districts that still need to be reported. But as you said, it doesn't seem like that's going to be enough to make a difference in this race. So they're still calling Kathy Hochul. But once we see everything in and the official results certified, we'll kind of know a little bit more about that and what happened. Joe, anything else to add?
Yeah, Larry was saying last night that he's going to try to put in a FOIL request to get information on the write-ins, but I don't know if they'll end up giving it to him or not. But that's one of the things he was saying. He had a video he was posted, and he was saying that. So,
yeah, no, Andre, and it's worth asking. It's worth seeing. It's worth auditing to see what went on there. But there, I'm at this point in time, given how New York State has treated third parties, I'm expecting to be disappointed, and I'm hoping that I'll be pleasantly surprised. Maybe I will be, but I'm kind of expecting to be disappointed, even trying to get more information about the results that we did have in this election.
It really is.
Yeah, and that is what it is. But Joe, anything else to add before we get ready to take off?
That's it. You have a good day.
Hey, thank you so much for calling in, Joe. And folks, again, if you want to weigh in on this stuff, appreciate the calls. As always, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. If you'd like to call in, of course, you can leave your comments online to a Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group, or the Kevin Wilson pages, wherever you are listening today. Again, appreciate y'all being here. And again, it is interesting, folks, seeing the results of these and what happened, and making sure that we have good, trustworthy elections. Give us a call if you want to participate in this, weigh in with your own issues. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. We'll be back here on A Free Solution in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Pray for the USA. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. Clear skies, still a little cool, but not as cold. We'll be down around 40 Thursday, a gorgeous day. Make sure you get out and enjoy it. Lots of sunshine, a warmer afternoon, close to 70 for a high Thursday. On Friday, we start dry. Veterans Day, I think morning, early, we're okay. Rain will arrive around midday, very wet weather, Friday evening into Friday night. I'm Rich Caniglia, WYSL.
WYSL. Rock On Harley Davidson and Rock On Power Sports, West Henrietta Road. Shop the greatest selection of legendary Harleys and save big on a wide array of used bikes. And Rock On Power Sports has rides from Honda, Kawasaki, and Yamaha. Rock On has a helpful staff to save you big money. The Rock On Service Department has expert technicians and a great supply of parts to get and keep you on two wheels. WYSL listeners get $500 off used motorcycles while supplies last. Rock On has side-by-sides, ATVs, and jet boats too. Anything that's fun and goes fast. On and off-road and on the water, shop the all-new Rock On first. Rock On Harley Davidson and Rock On Motorsports, 2600 West Henrietta Road. Open Tuesday through Saturday. Call 424-2120. Visit rockonharleydavidson.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Our members are important to us, so we look out for their best interests. Talk about best interests. At Advantage, we're offering an auto loan rate of just 4.49 APR. And it's good on any make, model, or year. The Advantage Federal Credit Union Everyday Great Rate is as low as 4.49 annual percentage rate, and it's good on any make, model, or year. Even use it to refinance your current car loan if it's with another bank. Plus, you can apply right now online at AdvantageFCU.org, unless you're driving, in which case, better wait till you stop. Membership subject to eligibility, member NCUA, limited time offer.
I'm Stephen Nichols. Since 1984, Nichols has been family operated and a trusted name for home service. We provide plumbing and electrical installation and service. And I am thrilled to announce that we are growing and looking to add to our scope of services. We are looking for a professional handyman who is skilled in drywall repair, carpentry, and more. If you are interested in joining the best team in Rochester, call 585-299-3101 or visit nicholselectric.com to fill out an application.
Sheriff Thomas Doherty would like to remind people to safeguard your credit cards. Photocopy the front and back of your credit cards and store them in a safe place. If you lose them or they are stolen, it is easy for you to cancel the cards and report the loss or theft. Save your receipts and review all your statements when you receive them. Report any charges not made by you immediately. It is important that you do not give out your credit card number other than to make a purchase or reservation that you have initiated. Shred any pre-approved credit card applications. Think credit card safety.
If you are dealing with chronic pain, Dr. Chirag Patel is now available in the Southern Tier. Serving Noyes, Jones, and St. James hospitals, Dr. Patel is an experienced pain management specialist. He offers steroid injections and many other procedures and has a special interest in the lumbar and cervical spine. Don't let chronic pain impact your quality of life. Ask your doctor for a referral or call 585-243-0150.
It's Turnbull tune-up time for the colder weather. Ensure safe operation of your heating system. Increase energy efficiency. Help your system live longer. Let the professionally trained technicians at Turnbull perform a thorough 13-point precision tune-up on your home comfort heating system. Call now for the next available appointment. 1-800-330-2005. Or in Avon, call 226-6180. Protect your heating system against breakdowns. Save on energy. Don't get caught cold. Get comfortable with the best. Turnbull Heating and Air.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
All right, welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thank you so much for joining us here on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We're live here on WYSL until 2 p.m. You can always give us a call, 585-346-3000, 585-346-3000, or leave your comments online as well. I'm getting plenty of callers today, too. Next up is Keith. Keith, what's going on? That's a free solution.
Of both parties. Republicans always eager to go along. Years ago, agreed to early voting. They should have known they were cutting their own throats. Democrats love the early voting because it leaves it open right for fraud, and the Dems will never give that up. So Pandora's box has been open, and Republicans, who are stupid saps much of the time, really should have seen this coming, that the Democrats cannot be trusted. And
Keith, I'm worried I'm going to regret asking this, but like, what is fraudulent about early voting?
It's ballot harvesting, all kinds of things get in there. The same way that previous callers were saying about the machines. I'm making an across-the-board statement. If the Democrats can pull off shenanigans, they will. They are the party of cheaters. And Republicans have been most naive about all that. I don't know.
Yeah, everything specific to toss out, or?
Well, I'll go on here. The better educated electorates are found in the red states. The voters got it right in Florida, but they got it wrong in the blue states of New York and Michigan. Incumbency, certainly when you're a bad guy, very sad that in Michigan, the good conservative female with the name Tudor Dixon was not able to overcome the very bad, corrupt Gretchen Whitmer. I'll move on. And so far as picking up on Mr. Sharp's words, I don't know if this is true, and I'm not knocking Mr. Zeldin, but Larry Sharp said, here goes, that Zeldin ran knowing that he would lose, but still would make out like a bandit, because of what Mr. Sharp called Republican graft. I don't know if that's too forward and harsh on the part of Mr. Sharp, but I will say, since you're libertarian, what would have happened if Mr. Sharp had been allowed to run and take on Hochul? Larry Sharp was saying all along, it turned out to be true, that Zeldin would not win, and whether Mr. Sharp could have taken Zeldin's place, I'll ask, not necessarily turning the tables on you, but I'll ask you, since you're a fellow libertarian, if Sharp had run in Zeldin's place, would enough Republicans, conservatives, independents, and all of you libertarians, would you have gotten Sharp over the top, unlike Zeldin?
Yeah, Larry seems to think, and I think there's a good argument made that like a coalition that he led would have been more effective in bringing him over the top, right? Again, especially in this particular election year, it's just that like the weapons that Kathy Hochul had to throw at Lee Zeldin about him not showing up to vote, about the January 6th stuff, which regardless of how you feel about it, probably did hurt him, in about any number of other issues when have applied to Larry Sharp. She would have found some other way to attack him, but I think he could have built an effective enough coalition to be over the top if he had been able to run on that Republican ballot line, plus have the Libertarian Party line and build that coalition among several other factions to be able to win. I think there's a realistic possibility about that, but the Republicans weren't really interested in that, and Lee Zeldin's going to do what Lee Zeldin's going to do. We'll see if Larry Sharp's prediction about him comes true. Is he going to be in a cushy lobbyist job or law firm immediately after this, doing political consulting or something? We'll see. There's a good chance of that. But Keith, I appreciate the call, but I do have another caller on the line too, and I want to make sure I get to both of you. Red is on the line. Hey, Red, welcome to A Free Solution. What's up?
Yes.
Hey, what's on your mind, Red? Yep, I'm here.
Yeah. Maybe I could shed a little light on why the machines reject voter ballots.
Sure, right on.
It's been going
Tell us
on
about
for a long time, and I always wondered why. And yesterday, I was at the polls, and there was a machine technician there from the Bureau of Elections.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was doing, he had it looked like a sheet of paper, but he said it had rough edges, or a little rough surface on it. And he was putting that through the slots and rubbing it back and forth. And he said what happens is, with all the use that those machines get, ink kind of wears off the paper onto the surface, and what he was doing is more or less sandpapering, for lack of a better word, all that accumulated ink off.
Right. So any ink that built up on the sensors that might make it more difficult for the machine to read, they're cleaning it out. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
That's been going on for years. As I say, I've always wondered why it would, a machine would act up, and it would accept some and not others, and sometimes it'll accept the ballot if it's turned over or put in a different way. I still don't really understand what difference that makes, but it does make sense that those sensors get dirty and have to be cleaned now and then, and then the machine will run better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, again, it's a piece of hardware like anything else, right? There can be mechanical failures, scanning failures. If someone uses a little bit too much ink with those like fine tip markers when they fill in the bubbles, right? Like if it's still kind of wet when they put it through, does any of that rub off? These are all things that could happen. Again, I don't have all the answers on the machines. I'm not an expert on those.
No, none of us are.
But yeah, I was just gonna throw out there again, like I posted a link to this on the social media channels, but if you go to monroecounty.gov/elections, there are the email addresses of the commissioners and deputy commissioners. And again, I found, especially the Republican deputy commissioner, like I found him very helpful for answering questions about this stuff, and they would probably be able to tell you the answers to like what's going on with like machines not reading and things like that.
That seems like a plausible answer, and that's I'm sure that makes everybody a little more comfortable with having their ballot rejected 2 or 3 times before it's accepted. And as far as acceptance goes, when the machine registers a ballot, the last thing that you see is ballot successfully cast.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you know that ballot was counted. And there is a counter that you can look at. You can see that the number changed.
Yeah. No, that's again that's how you know now, right? And I think what some folks are asking is like, do I know that it read correctly, right? And some folks like, should I get a receipt for who I voted for? Did it read that?
You don't know how
right, like, oh sure, it's cast, but is it?
Just know that it was counted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And there are pros and cons to that, right? Like the pro is like, hey, that like my votes ended up going towards the people I intended them to go for. But the con of that is like, well, there are some privacy issues with it. There's some issues where like an employer might say like, well, if you don't vote for so-and-so, then you can't work here. And like, you don't want to do that type of stuff, right? You want to make sure that that's not happening. But so you have to strike a balance between like the privacy aspect of it and the confirmation and trust that like who you voted for ended up counting in the way you intended.
That brings up another issue. If you want to talk about the privacy issue.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to protect, knowing how you voted? from. There's a poll worker there. Somebody comes in and they have a line, for one party or the other, and I help them out, and eventually their vote gets counted. But first of all, I don't know their name.
Oh, sure.
When hundreds of people are coming through there, how would I remember? Even if I knew their name, how would I remember?
You wouldn't necessarily know, and
yeah,
again, the privacy. Like, I'm not worried about the poll workers, and the other thing that can happen too is any political party or anyone can have a like inspectors show up too, so you can like be there. You can't interfere with the whole process, but like you're able to witness if someone feels like an election worker is acting inappropriately or violating the privacy or anything else in relation to like what the actual election rules are. There can be observers there to make sure that that's going well. So something to keep in mind. That's an option that political parties have. But Red, thank you so much for calling in. Thank you, Keith, for calling in this segment too. And if you want to participate in the show too, you listening out there, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back here on A Free Solution in just a few minutes.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Are you interested in indoor target shooting? Or do you know someone interested in indoor target shooting? The Rochester Rifle Club has an indoor range in Brighton, New York. Shooting is with .22 caliber rifles, air guns, and pistols with reduced loads. We have leagues and open shooting times. For more information or for a membership application, go to our website at rochesterrifleclub.org. That's rochesterrifleclub.org.
Only available in the WYSL store at WYSL1040.com. Official top quality tees, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting the colorful WYSL logo or the already famous Mount Worstmore line of merch depicting Mount Rushmore style are for worst presidents. Of course, you know who is front and center up on that mountain. WYSL official items make perfect gifts, or they're a great way for you to make a personal statement. Locally produced and sold only in the WYSL store at WYSL1040.com.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thank you so much for joining us here on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. We're live on WYSL until 2 p.m. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. And we're talking about the election, the results, about the voting process, about voting integrity too. And again, I'm generally on the side of there are decent folks, Republicans, Democrats, and others like working hard to make sure that there's election integrity. So without a lot of like really solid evidence, I'm a little bit skeptical about, the claims of like election fraud anywhere. Like, again, I know there are some specific circumstances where stuff happens, but they're relatively rare. And you do have Republican partisans looking at this stuff too, unless, you don't trust them either. But again, even as a third party candidate, I think we've been lucky so far in Monroe County. I know this isn't the case everywhere, but I've always had a very good experience with the commissioners in Monroe County, the election commissioners. And they're usually fairly responsive when you reach out and ask them questions about some of this stuff. And I posted a link to the website and where to find them on our social media channels. And I know there's I guess the Republican candidate for Congress, Singletary, is like kind of bringing up some of these issues with the Monroe County voting that happened. And we'll see if anything comes of it, right? He hasn't conceded yet. We'll see if anything comes of that. And if there's new evidence that pops up that some actual shenanigans happened, not just accusations, but actual shenanigans, then I'll talk about it here. But in the meantime, again, I have no reason to assume that it's bad until I see something otherwise. I think that there's, unfortunately, a lot of popular public political sentiment leaning towards Democrats in New York State. It's shifting a little bit. Democrats have had to adjust the message accordingly, but in Monroe County, it's a blue county. That's what it is. And I wish more people voted Libertarians, but like that's the next thing. Like there's two things that I think about like this election in terms of like where is like the movement of people that I agree with, like Libertarians specifically. What do we do from here? And that's okay. So assuming that the vote count of write-ins is accurate, 0.17%, that stinks. That really bums me out. And I can't help but imagine if there were an actual name on the ballot, if Larry Sharpe were actually there, plus Howie Hawkins too, if the Democrats and then with the Republicans' consent to didn't collude to keep third parties off the ballot, to raise the threshold ridiculously high to get on the ballot, raise the threshold ridiculously high to keep that ballot access, having it every 2 years instead of every 4 years, then that share of the vote total would have been higher. But we can't do anything about that now. In a lot of ways, the Democrats and Republicans have rigged the game. They made it difficult for their competition to be on the ballot, and they're now taking our money to go fund their campaigns too because of the campaign funding. That was their supposed justification for this stuff. We've talked about that a lot on this show. I've talked about it. Larry's talked about it. It's sick. So the next step is, well, what do you do to organize around it? How do you get better? And I mean, the answer is just going to have to be building independent candidacies, probably starting at the local level, like the Facebook user I mentioned at the beginning of the show talked about, getting some of those local seats and starting to build power, right? Like that's what it is that we can't expect the Democrats to do the right thing. We know that, the Democrats were perfectly willing to gerrymander all the districts in New York State. Absent judicial intervention, they would have further rigged the game for themselves. And again, when I talk about like elections and politics being rigged in some way, like that's usually the way it happens, right? It's gerrymandering, it's setting up the districts, it's making ballot access difficult for outside challengers. Like those are the like substantive, like concrete ways in which Democrats and often Republicans too, not just in New York State, but across the country, have made things difficult for anyone to bring in outside independent voices and new ideas to the electoral process. The actual voting itself might be fair in the sense that there probably isn't a lot of voter fraud happening. It does happen occasionally, but it's pretty rare. There probably isn't a lot of voter suppression happening, as the Democrats always accuse. It's mostly the process itself. Again, the cost, the signatures, the ballot access, the rules for outside folks getting in. That process is seriously broken. And without power exercised through legitimate channels, it's not going to change. And let's make sure I acknowledge this comment too. Sam on YouTube says, my experience has always been fair in Monroe County as well. Yeah, again, that's been my experience too. It's like if you're following the rules of the election as they're set, the commissioners, in my experience, have been nice. It's just that the way the rules are set, the way the rules are rigged against third-party candidates, that's the tough part. And it has this air of legitimacy, right? Like they're not hiding anything. They're just like, well, you just got to follow the rules, and we have a process for getting on the ballot, and it applies to everybody, blah, blah, blah. They can claim fairness. They can claim to be above board while also rigging the system in their favor. And like, oh, well, it's just that's what the people want, because look how many people vote Republican and Democrat every time. Because you don't have much choice, because the system makes it difficult to do that. Again, when I ran for Congress, what I have to do, like I couldn't get into debates to even participate in discussions, Republicans and Democrats. Neither candidate wanted to show up to the debate that I was invited to. And the other debate, I didn't have enough money to get in. That's what it was. I didn't have enough money raised to get in. And the Republican bought his way into that debate. He donated a big chunk of money to himself so he could get in. And that counts, apparently. He loaned that money to his own campaign so he could get in. Wild. And that means that no other ideas end up happening. And we do see in races where libertarians do get into debates where they are able to participate in the discussion, where that does make a difference. We see that in the Georgia Senate election. Chase Oliver is a candidate for U.S. Senate down there who ended up getting it's like a little over 2% of the vote down there, and is forcing that election into a runoff because there's a lot of voters who didn't want to choose between the Republican and Democratic candidates in that election. And we saw something similar. There's no runoff process in Pennsylvania, but I talked about this on Monday. Like, man, that I would not want to be in the position of having to vote between Dr. Oz and Fetterman. They're both, in their own unique ways, terrible candidates. And a handful of folks are like, you know what? There's, in fact, a couple libertarians on the ballot in this election. There's a guy named Eric, and then there's like a Keystone Party candidate too, and they're the sort of libertarian-ish folks down there, and they end up getting a good chunk of the vote, and they end up being very close. Fetterman ultimately ended up winning, and that race has been called. But there's a handful of folks who are just, no, I don't want either of these people. I want something else, and it's so tough to get folks to reject that binary thinking, to not just vote defensively every single time. Because I've talked to so many people in New York State who, like, why they wanted to support Zeldin this time was, well, we've got to stop Kathy Hochul. Why they supported Kathy Hochul this time is, well, we got to stop Lee Zeldin. And until we stop playing like defense and we start finding new ways to organize and gather power and claw back our liberty, we're going to just end up slowly inching towards worse and worse government, far more incompetent government, more corrupt government, more government that ends up taking away our economic and political and social liberties. So we have to find some ways to organize and be effective. And again, I don't have all the answers to that. I don't know what that is. I by all means, have not been successful in being able to do that. But we've got to start somewhere. And I'm hoping that one of you listening out there today is the person to kind of really kick that off and start organizing in an effective way and getting us to the point where ideas that put liberty first are able to start winning, not just in the cultural realm, but also in the policy realm too. Because if we don't, we're going to continue to be in trouble. We're going to get into bad positions. And then whenever a moment of fear comes, like we had with the pandemic, and it can happen with a whole bunch of other stuff too, our liberty will continue to erode. That is the culture we live in now, unfortunately. And it's going to take a lot of work to fight that. Starts with the culture, but also starts with organizing, starts with finding ways to actually get power within the systems that we have. And so I don't know what that looks like. I don't know. You know, the third party situation in New York is not great. So I don't know if that's going to continue to be a route that is worth pursuing. That's going to be harsh to some of my libertarian friends, but that's the reality. I don't know that we've been effective enough in that route to continue putting resources in it. What do we do next then? All right, food for thought for the week. But I'm out for the day. I'm out for the week. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, folks. I will be back on Monday. Take care.